walking through a ghost town. Y'all ain't playing my sounds. Don't tell me to calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. Only time I go backwards is when I wanna moonwalk. Don't test me, my mood's wrong. Don't test me, my mood's wrong. We are who we say that we are. You were lost in the stars, and it's all from the start. Never running no pace, never on the right page, but we still read that book, and we still run that race. Mississippi Racer riding out, no shortcuts, no time for that. Mississippi Racer riding out till the wheels fall off, I'm driving that. Mississippi Racer riding out, we'll stop burning, strike the match. Mississippi Racer riding out, red light, green light, red light, good night. Hey, red light, green light, red light, good night. 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 Time to chill, don't sweat it.
Good morning and welcome. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show powered by Wire to Wire Network. Thank you so much for making us part of your morning routine. Whether you're watching us live on YouTube, live on Facebook, live on Twitter, or maybe you are watching us live on Roku TV, thanks to the wonderful, wonderful people over there at Northeast Sports Productions. I am Chris, and of course, that over there, that is Mo. Mo, happy Hype Day, sir.
And happy hump day to you and everybody out there as well. I'm geeked for this. Let's go.
Mo, so last night was the moment, or so we thought it was going to be the moment. The Dallas Mavericks had an opportunity to sweep the Western Conference Finals and follow suit with the Boston Celtics. They did not do that. Minnesota was able to get on the board last night. It was another good game. It was tied. I think it was tied at half, or it was very close at half.
It was tied. And
then it's a 5-point lead going into the fourth quarter. And then they play an even fourth quarter, ends up being a 5-point victory. It's another close game. You're looking at this series, even though it's 3-1, even though Minnesota had their backs against the wall. Ant played great basketball, I thought. And they're on the board. They're down 3-1. But Mo, you have to ask yourself, and I look at the series and I go, sometimes, and I thought this in the Denver series, Minnesota goes up 2-0. They're trying to go up 3-0. And I said to myself, you better go up 3-0 because right. I feel like if you go up 2-1, like after what you did in those first two games, just destroying Denver, if Denver comes back and they make it 2-1, well, now the sky is no longer falling. Now the door is wide open for Denver, just down 2-1, and you still got the whole series ahead of you. Obviously, when you go up 3-0, they get a game. You start saying, well, could this be the start of something? I'm not there yet. I don't feel like this could be the start of something. Now, I understand that Minnesota, they're the favorites to win Game 5. I believe they're like a 4.5-point favorite. That's what they opened up with this morning to win Game 5. But Mo, I look at the series and I think it's going to be another good game in Game 5. And if you said, Chris, this was going to go 7 games from the start, I would have believed that. If you're Dallas, I hope this doesn't go 7 games because I don't think you're winning this series if it goes 7 games. But Mo, I didn't see anything last night where I said to myself, oh, Dallas might be in trouble here. What I saw was another close game that either of those teams could have won. And it just so happened that Minnesota made more shots late in that game last night than Dallas did. Luka took a lot of the blame on his own shoulders last night, which I'm okay with that. That's what leaders do. Kyrie, by the way, this is his first time he has ever lost a closeout game in the playoffs in his career. So fun fact there, he's now 14-1 in closeout games. But Mo, I didn't see anything where I was like, oh, watch out. Minnesota's got something cooking now.
No, it was interesting to watch the game play out because Minnesota, they end up shooting 50% from the field, 40%, a little bit over 40% from 3. They played the best I've seen them play in this series. They still couldn't get any separation from Dallas. Like I thought that was interesting. And it was another really tight, interesting, compelling game. But it was also the sloppiest game of the series. I mean, I think Luka had 6 or 7 turnovers. I know Kyrie had 5. Ant was the best player on the floor, and he had 8. It was a very sloppy game. I just thought the Timberwolves did a great job of running different blitzes at Luka, getting the ball out of his hands, and the defense on Kyrie was much better. I thought they got into his body. They didn't get caught up watching him when he was handling the ball. They were more physical with him. It was again a great game in terms of how compelling it was. Sloppy, but I'm with you. I didn't come away going Dallas is in trouble. I will say this though: if you get to Game 5 and it's a close game, a one possession game, I'm going to favor the Mavericks. I think for Minnesota to win a Game 5 and come back to Dallas for a Game 6, they have to blow the doors off of the Mavericks. And they're capable of doing that. But I think if it's a tight game, Dallas will close them out at home.
Let's get Will up in here right now. Will joins us every Wednesday to talk NBA basketball. And this is, of course, something that we want to talk to him about. Will, welcome this morning. How are you, sir?
Hey, thank you guys for having me on once again. I do appreciate it. How y'all doing this morning?
Pretty good. Pretty well. So, Will, you saw the game last night. Obviously, if you're a Minnesota fan, you know it's a great morning. The roses smell nice. The coffee tastes better. You are back in the series, and you are doing exactly what Ant said you were going to do, because Ant said after Game 3, y'all can't beat us. Y'all can't put us away, even though they were down 3-0 in the series. Did you see anything last night, especially on the defensive side of the ball? Because they did, like Mo just said, they probably played their best offensive basketball as far as their efficiency in this series, despite it also being the sloppiest game of the series. But did you see anything on the defensive side of the ball where you're like, okay, if they can keep doing that, or if they can play off of that and expand upon that, then maybe they can be even more locked down? Because I wouldn't say they were locked down last night, but they did some nice things late defensively that played off the things they set up early defensively. So where do you sit? Are you gonna give Minnesota fans hope this morning and say, I think we got something cooking here? Or are you gonna go with, it was a nice win, good job avoiding the sweep, but this is Dallas' series?
That's all I saw last night, was a team who made the adjustments not to get swept. You saw McDaniels go in on Kyrie. You saw Ant covering Luka. So I like those defensive switches. But go back. Mo is correct. This was a sloppy game. But also go back and look at Dallas. Dallas didn't get anybody they didn't play well at all. As a team, you go back and look at PJ Washington. He gave you nothing. You go back and look at Powell, and Powell came off the bench, and Luka was looking at him like he 2 possessions, and Luka was looking at it, and then they pulled him, and you never saw Powell again.
Right.
It was just a bad game by Dallas. Luka missed that free throw toward the end that could have made him down just by 2 instead of 3. And then after that, the way they scored to make it the 105-100, I'm looking like, what? So no, I just think that Dallas played a bad game. Give it up to Cat though. Cat did hit some big threes.
Shot well.
But my thing is, and he did it right because he started on the inside early and then hit the threes late. But again, can you depend on that next game? Also, you got to look at Dallas again. PJ gave you nothing. He's been shooting bad for the whole series. They need him to come along. They need a third scorer. And right now, they don't have that. So, Mo, I see where you're going. If Dallas can get their woes straight off the bench and figure out how to handle this switch, because I think Minnesota will do it again because it worked in this game. If Minnesota can handle that, it could be tough. But if Dallas can adjust, and I think Kidd is a good enough of a coach to adjust to what the defense Minnesota's giving them, yeah, I don't think Dallas loses this series.
So, well, it came out this morning that Utah is looking to land a big star this summer. Now, that's a great headline. That's a great headline for that Utah franchise. They're looking to bring in a big star. They're looking to bring in a big name. But, Will, isn't that what every franchise wants to do? Isn't every franchise want to bring in a big name in the summer during the offseason? And if you look at the history of Utah, they don't really bring in big names.
No.
Now, they might draft people that turn into big names, who those big names eventually leave Utah and go to greener pastures and bigger markets somewhere else around the league. But, Will, we've also never really heard Utah openly be like, we're big fish hunting. Like, they don't usually come out and say that. Where do you think this is coming from, one? And two, what are the odds they actually land anyone of star relevance in a city where they haven't historically been able to do that?
I think that, first of all, who wants to play in Utah? That's the first thing. Second thing, for real, who wants to play in Utah? Second thing, and I will give them credit, sometimes they do hit a trade every now and again, i.e. Lawyer Marketing from my Bulls, who went over there and found success. John Collins, okay, I'll give you those two. But outside of that, no. I just think it's all speak from the front office to try to get fans to come to be interested in the team, to try to generate some buzz. But who wants to play in Utah? Who wants to play in Utah? Who wants to?
You know what? To be fair, I think you're right, Will, 100%. It's management and marketing trying to give the season ticket holders some hope. The reality is what's going to happen is they will get somebody, but it'll be a secondary star. It won't be a big name. They'll get somebody like your boy that you guys are trying to get rid of. They'll get Zach LaVine. They'll overpay. They'll overpay for a Zach LaVine.
They can have it.
They might even do what a lot of teams don't want to do. They'll go, hey, Paul George, we'll give you that Supermax. We'll give you a 5-year Supermax. Like the month that they will have to give overwhelming money to bring in a secondary star, but the idea that they're going to bring in a top star, that's not going to happen. Nobody's ever gone to the Utah Jazz of their own volition willingly. They were traded there or they were drafted there.
Exactly.
But at no time, and we've heard a lot of rumors over the last 20 years. You never heard people going like, I don't know, Clutch Sports is in contact and LeBron is really looking at the Jazz to get him a hard look. He's meeting with them right. You never heard that. You never heard that.
Stop it.
Even the rumors of Bronny being drafted by the Jazz, that got pushed away because they were told by Clutch Sports, don't do that. Don't waste your time. If you draft Bronny, who's not coming there. You know who's not coming. I'm just saying, to credit Danny Ainge, who's I believe now is the GM there. He's a terrific GM and president of basketball operations. He's terrific at wheeling and dealing. But even as gifted as he is, unless he can pull off a monstrous trade, they're not really serious about acquiring a big name in free agency. That's just a fact. And it's nothing against the city of Utah, which I'm sure is a great city. But I'm looking at the league, and it's a very young league. How many young players are going to go, man, I can't wait to get to Utah? They're not going to say that. They're not going to say that. That's just a harsh reality of Utah.
And even if you take nightlife out the equation, from what I understand, it could get cold in Utah, from what I understand. So, nah. Unless you're really big, I guess, on hunting and fishing. Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you're not really outdoorsy,
you ain't going to Utah.
What's the draw?
Exactly. None.
Well, every day it's another story of who do the Philadelphia 76ers want. And right now they have a Rolodex. They have a Rolodex of names that they are currently attached to. And this morning, the name that was pulled from the Rolodex was Jimmy Butler. Sources out of Philly say that if they are able to pull off a trade for Jimmy Butler, they will have no hesitation giving him a max deal if they are able to get him in Philadelphia. So let's just look at that, Will. First of all, what would they have to give up? We know what the Heat said. The Heat said they're not moving Jimmy Butler. They're not interested in trading Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler is going to be there when the season starts. That's great. Let's pretend they're going to move Jimmy Butler. What would the 76ers have to realistically give up to get him? And then if they were to get him, Will, and they give him a max deal, what does that team then look like once they acquire him and they have to go fill out the rest of that roster?
I don't know how you do this without a second or maybe a third or fourth team getting involved, just for the money aspect of it. I don't know how you do that. Maybe you can get somebody to join in. Maybe I don't know, maybe the Bucks, um, um, or maybe the Cavs and the Wizards, something to that ilk. Because I don't know how this gets done unless you bring in another team or two to make the money work.
I would also add you're dealing with Pat Riley.
Yep.
And Pat Riley knows you want Jimmy Butler. Pat Riley might be willing to trade Jimmy Butler, but seriously, what do the Sixers have to offer that Pat Riley would want? The only thing that they would have to offer that he would want is Tyrese Maxey, and I have to assume that he's a non-starter. The only way that deal could ever get made is if you would involve a third team who has something that Pat Riley has to get something that Pat Riley wants. He will keep Jimmy Butler even if he doesn't want to keep him just for spite. Just for spite.
Yep, he'll keep him out of spite. Maybe you get the Cavs involved. Maybe you find a way to get Donovan Mitchell maybe involved. I don't know, but to me, you got to have a third or fourth team to make this work. You got to.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the fact that teams are obviously with Atlanta. The idea is that both of those stars could be on their way out. Trae Young has been attached to several teams, including Mo's Lakers. DeJounte Murray is getting a lot of attention right now, even though I know Mo doesn't want Trae Young, but Mo, apparently LeBron likes him. Apparently LeBron has, kind of given the thumbs up on the potential Trae Young move. So, but we'll get to that in a moment. But Will, apparently outside of the Lakers, Murray is the one who is drawing more attention of this duo. Fair or foul, do you think that Murray should be the one that's drawing more attention across the league as being someone that they want to go after than Trae Young?
That's fair. To me, it's fair because I think Murray is a better player. Is he a big name like Trae Young? No, but he's a better player overall than Trae Young. Look, he's bigger. He's a little bit more durable. A much better defender than what Trae is. So yeah, I think it's fair. And like I said, I still think Trae Young's days are numbered in Atlanta. I think somebody will pick him up just for the offensive standpoint, but I think Murray's the better player.
What do you think, Mo?
No, I agree. I mean, DeJounte Murray is not just a better all-around player. He's a better fit in different systems because he's a great point of attack defender. I think going to Atlanta was the worst thing that happened to him because he was supposed to help change their culture, and I think they changed him. He adopted to what they were doing. Nobody's competing on defense. He became more of a volume shooter, which is not really what he does. The best version of DeJounte Murray gives you around 19 points a game and plays elite defense and impacts the game that way. So if somebody's out there looking for him as a third option, he would be a terrific third option.
Well, when you're looking at Trae Young possibly going to the Lakers, let's say that move happens. Does he fit? Does he fit with the Lakers? We know that LeBron has to sign off on it, and all of the rumor and innuendo as of right now says LeBron likes the kid, which you don't hear a lot. You don't hear a lot of LeBron likes the kid. Usually LeBron doesn't like kids. Usually LeBron wants to play with vets. He wants to play with people who are mature. He wants to play with high IQ basketball people. But apparently he's okay for whatever reason with Trae Young. So if that were to pop off and be facilitated, is he actually a good fit in LA? Because we all know GM LeBron, his track record isn't the best. He doesn't get it right a lot of the time.
No, he doesn't.
So just because LeBron signs off on it doesn't mean it's going to work. Do you like the Trae Young Los Angeles Laker fit?
I don't, because because how far is he off from D'Lo? I mean, let's look at it. They're both terrible defenders. They're both streaky shooters. They contribute nothing really in the half court outside of them getting hot and their shot hitting. So no, because there's really not a whole big difference there between what D'Lo gives you and what Trae Young gives you. And I wouldn't even look at that deal to pick him up. Maybe you do it because it's a name value. But if you go back and look at production and look how they play, I don't really see a big disparity between D'Lo and what Trae Young gives you.
Mo, we know where you sit on this. You are not a fan of Mr. Young coming to Los Angeles.
I'm not, but I'm gonna look at this through through the lens of LeBron. And I think what LeBron is saying is, I see a guy that when I go to the bench, he can create for himself, and he can still keep the offense rolling. He can get on a run and have a 19, 20-point quarter. I see a guy that when we're on the floor together, because of his shooting ability, when I've got the ball in my hands, I can kick to him, and he's a more of a reliable scoring threat than D'Lo is. So I think through that lens, that's what LeBron's looking at. Because remember, I don't care who you are, Trae Young, whatever the point guard's name is. If you play with LeBron James, you're going to play less point guard and more two guard. That's just a harsh reality because LeBron is ball dominant. He just is. And we know that Trae Young is ball dominant. You think he's going to get to be ball dominant playing with LeBron James? When LeBron James is on the bench, yes. When they're on the floor, Trae Young will be a spot-up shooter. That could work to a degree. That might work really well in the regular season, but in the playoffs, I think you will have the same results as if you had D'Angelo Russell, to Will's point. Trae Young gives you nothing defensively. Every team will hunt him, and every team will get whatever shot they want. And he's a volume scorer. He's not really an efficient scorer. So I don't see the benefits the way LeBron sees them. But I want to remind people, LeBron was also in love with getting Russell Westbrook, and we see how that ended up.
Well, yesterday we talked a little LeBron here on the show, and we did some fantasy booking, and I wanted to get your opinion on it before we get you out of here today. We said, what if LeBron goes to the Warriors next season, and he teams up with Steph Curry, and together they both win their 5th chip side by side, all right? What does that do for Steph's legacy? What does that do for LeBron's legacy if they both get to 5 together? And I presented 2 arguments to Mo because I think people would throw both arguments out. The first argument I presented was, well, Steph needed KD and LeBron to win 3 of his 5 titles, which I think people are going to go to right away. But the other side of that argument that I presented was maybe they needed him as well, because KD went to Steph to win 2 titles, didn't do anything after him. LeBron, at the end of his career, when he said, I want to get 1 more, he went to Steph and got himself a 5th title. So maybe that elevates Steph more than it detracts from Steph, Will, because you have 2 of the biggest names of Steph's generation coming to play with him in his backyard to win some titles. What is your take if that were to play out? LeBron goes to Golden State, him and Steph both win their 5th. I think LeBron's legacy is where it is. He's going to be 1 or 2, depending on how you feel about LeBron. But does that do anything to Steph's legacy?
I don't think so, because he's already done it. He's already done it without KD. He's already done it without Bron currently. So I don't think it does any harm or damage to to Steph's legacy. LeBron, because of history, overall, not now, but overall, he will always be 1 or 2, depending on what era you grew up in next to Michael Jordan. So I don't think it hurts either guy per se to team up. It'll just be a 5th ring, but I don't think it hurts either legacy, because they have done it without each other before, which you can't say about KD. So I don't think it hurts either. Yeah, I don't think it hurts either.
Will, when is the next time that we can see you on the air, sir?
Oh my goodness. Took Monday off. Here today. Next time you see me will be on my show. Mo knows it. He's been there before, the Geek Gauntlet podcast every Saturday night on Twitch.
Great show. Great show.
Talk about anime, talk about gaming, talk about TV. We break all of that down on the Geek Gauntlet podcast every Saturday night at 10 p.m. Eastern on Twitch.
Well, we appreciate having you on here every week. Have a good rest of your week, sir. All right.
Thank you. You guys have a great one. Thanks for having me.
All right, Mo, let's talk a little NFL, shall we? We've had these conversations many times, Mo. We've had these conversations where I say to you, sometimes it is just better to not talk about it. because once you start talking about it, you are going to say things that people are going to pick apart, and you are going to say things that some people, like me, just don't think are true. So that is exactly how I feel about the general manager of the Buffalo Bills coming out and having an open conversation about the Stefon Diggs trade. So, of course, he's going to be asked about it. Of course, he has to say something about it. But in my opinion, you just say that we thought we did what was best for the team, and you move on, and you allow us to fill in the blanks. You allow us to create the narrative of why you did it. You don't actually double down and try to put one reason before another reason or try to fill in the details of why you did it. But Mo, that's what he did. And he chose to go down the path of salary cap. He chose to say that, Stefon was signed through 2028. We were going to be in a salary cap nightmare with him at some point regardless. And we chose to take the hit sooner rather than later. So we shipped him out. Now, that sounds great on the surface. If you looked at Diggs' contract, it was going to be a nightmare at some point. So he's not lying about that. But then you look at what happened the moment they traded him. The moment they traded him to Houston, Houston voided every single year on his contract after this upcoming season. They paid him like 3 times what he was going to make this season and said, let's ride for 1 year and we'll see where we at. And you'll be a free agent next year. And we'll figure out later what we want to do with you, if we want you back or whatever that situation is. So it's not like something couldn't have been potentially figured out, Mo, if that was what really the case. Like if they actually wanted him in Buffalo really, really bad this season, they could have kicked the can down the road a little further, couldn't they, Mo?
Exactly.
If they really wanted him in Buffalo, if it really wasn't a salary cap situation, I don't know. Maybe, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, maybe this has something to do with the fact that he keeps arguing with your franchise quarterback. Maybe this has something to do with the fact that his brother, who plays for the Dallas Cowboys, is tweeting about freeing Stefon from the shackles that are the Buffalo Bills. Right. Maybe this has to do something with the fact that every time Stefon's not getting the ball, he's complaining about it. And when he is getting the ball, he's dropping it more frequently. But maybe I'm wrong, Mo. Maybe it was just a salary cap move.
Yeah, well, the salary cap move narrative is interesting. I'm with you. He could have literally just said, you know what, Stefon, we moved on. It's a situation that's worked out for both sides, right? This is where we're at, and we've gone in another direction, and you could have just left it at that. The salary cap move is interesting to me because would you use that same line, let's say, had Buffalo won the Super Bowl? Like, you won the Super Bowl, you're coming back defending Super Bowl champions. We got to let you go, Stefon, for salary cap. Like, you wouldn't do that, right? Because you just won. I'm just putting it out there because you just won the Super Bowl. Look, the thing is, you could have just taken the high road and just said, we just went in another direction. Even though everybody knows the underlying reasons that there was tension between Diggs and your star quarterback, and his brother was getting involved in social media. Not to mention, if you don't say anything, just wait. Diggs will say everything, right? It hasn't come yet, but it will come. He'll say everything. And if you just let him do his thing, you can take the high road. Trust me, he can't not resist comparing or saying something. We'll be 3, maybe 4 games into the next season, and Diggs is going to go, man, I've never been in office this good. The way they're using me, man, other people never did that. I've never played with a quarterback that threw the foot. He's going to go there because that's who he is. So, yeah, if I'm a GM, I'm not even acknowledging him. I'm just simply saying we've decided to go in another direction. I'm not going to use a salary cap excuse because, like you said, when you're talking about one of the elite receivers in football, and they don't come around that often like that, you could kick the can down the road. You could do some salary cap gymnastics if you wanted to keep that player. But I guess you didn't want to get into the whole, well, because I thought the follow-up question should have been, and there's not a way that you could have navigated his contract to push it down further, making his salary cap a little bit smaller or something of that narrative. and they didn't go there, but probably because he was sitting before. My guess is he was sitting in front of a bunch of Buffalo Bills reporters, right? Beat reporters, and Buffalo Bills beat reporters are not going to press you with tough questions.
They are not. They're going to give you the softball questions, and I'm surprised that question even got through in the first place, to be honest with you. As we were preparing for the upcoming NFL season, we talked a couple of weeks ago about quarterbacks that could potentially be on the hot seat with the pressure as the season begins. And this morning, we are going to talk about a couple of head coaches. We got 5 coaches that have been teed up for us, and we are going to go through each of them and decide how hot their seat is going to be heading into the season. We're just going to give it a basic, let's just go with a 1 through 5 scale. 1 through 5, 1 being nice and cool, maybe a little too cool for the derriere, and 1 being scalding hot. We're going to start with the current head coach of the New Orleans Saints. That is one Dennis Allen. Mo, you could argue that Dennis Allen should not even be the head coach of the New Orleans Saints right now. He's gone 16-18 in his last 2 years with the Saints. They don't have maybe they do, but I don't think they really have a capable quarterback currently on that team. We've seen Jameis Winston. We've seen Andy Dalton. We've seen Derek Carr. They haven't been to the playoffs since 2020. We thought that it was their division to easily take last season, and that didn't end up being the case. But yet he did survive the season and kept his job. So looking at this, and then let's not forget there was the whole situation with Jameis Winston and the 2-point conversion that Dennis Allen, did not call, that the players called in the huddle with Jameis because Jameis wanted to get one of his guys a little rub. And then Allen did not handle that very well afterwards either. So 1 to 5, how hot is the seat for Dennis Allen heading into this season?
And we're saying 5 is hot, right? It's smoldering hot.
5 is the hottest you're going to get.
I'm going to say he's at a 5. I believe he's at a 5. I don't even know why he's still the head coach now. And I don't want to use the word. Well, you know what? I like what you said, but I'll say when I look at Derek Carr and I watch him play, I would say that I would actually use the word he's a capable quarterback. The problem is more times than not, he's inconsistent. As capable as he is, he's very inconsistent. But I think Allen has done a poor job as a leader. Like when your players get together on an extra point, and I know it seems small, but they do that outside of you. It's almost like a mutiny. And it's not like Jameis Winston is the most popular or most powerful guy but Jameis said, let's do it. And they were like, yeah, let's do that.
Let's do it.
And they went ahead and he didn't handle that situation well. I think he's a good coach. I don't think he's a good head coach. I think some guys are they're just set in that coordinator zone. I think that's what he is. I think he's a better coordinator than a head coach. So I think he's definitely red hot. I think he's 5.
Let's talk about Matt Eberflus for the Chicago Bears. So for a while there, he had the nice little stretch with having the worst record of any head coach in the NFL. He went a league worst 3-14 in 2022, which was his first season at the helm. The team then jumped out to an abysmal 2-7 record midway through the following campaign. And then they had a relatively impressive 5-3 finish to the season that helped Eberflus hang on to his job. And now they've got some talent. They go and they draft a receiver and a quarterback in the first round. They sign a couple of pieces in free agency. And now you're looking at these Chicago Bears, Mo, and all of a sudden there's that E word, expectations, over there in Chicago with a head coach that hasn't really done much of anything during his tenure with the Bears. So how hot is Eberflus's seat heading into the season?
I think his is an interesting one because I thought his seat was hot the last couple of seasons. But here you have a rookie quarterback who's being billed, who they hope is a legit franchise quarterback. and they've given him all the weapons in the world. Like if you look at their offense, everything says on paper that offense should soar. But he is a rookie quarterback. So I think Eberflus, he's more of I would say he's like at a 3. I don't think it's smoldering hot because I think they're gonna give him a grace period unless Chicago's absolutely horrible. And because I think that if they win 8 games or they win 9 games, I don't think he's in trouble. But if they go something like two or 3 wins, yeah, he's gonna get fired. They're gonna blow right past we know you got a rookie quarterback. He's gonna get fired. So I think the Bears are gonna win more than that. So I would go with the over. I think to me they're probably a 6-7 win team. I don't think he'll get fired.
It's a lot of it's gonna be about how Caleb looks. If he looks like an NFL quarterback, if he looks like an upper tier NFL quarterback, and maybe the defense isn't keeping up their end of the bargain in some of those games, or they just don't have enough talent to beat some of the more talented teams, I think he will hang on for one more season.
Right.
But if they come out like you just said, and it's another 2-7 start or a 2-8 start, and maybe Caleb just doesn't look like he's progressing by game 6 or 7, I think they're going to cut that cord pretty quickly because they're going to want to. First of all, they're going to want their rookie quarterback to look good, and they're going to want someone in there that can make their rookie quarterback look good. And keep in mind, Eberflus is not an offensive guru.
Right.
So when you go with a lot of the offensive pieces they've brought in, you better hope your OC has their ducks in a row, because it's not the OC that they're going to look for first. It's going to be the defensive head coach that they look to move out first. So hopefully they get off to either a just below 500 start or a 500 start,
Right.
and it kind of calms the waters there in Chicago. And I think he can buy himself one more season if they're hanging around the 500 mark, 9 or 10 games in.
That's a great point. And like you said, what's the line? Marry the coach to the quarterback, right? They've got their quarterback. I think this season will decide whether or not do they have their coach.
Next up on the docket is Mike McCarthy, the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Mike McCarthy has helped guide the Dallas Cowboys to 3 consecutive 12-5 records and 2 NFC titles within that span. However, the Cowboys have just 1 playoff win to show for all of that. And not to be that guy, a win is a win, but their 1 playoff win did come against a depleted, older-looking Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that was in Brady's last year. And there were moments in that game, Mo, where you thought Brady was going to win it.
Right.
So that's their one. That's their 1 playoff win. It was against Tom Brady in his final year with the Bucs in the playoffs. So what do you make of the hot seat that Mike McCarthy is or is not sitting on as we kick off this season?
His is unique because you just ran off 3 12-win seasons, 2 division titles. And I get it. We all know the goal is to win the Super Bowl, but it's not easy getting there. And he's not in an easy division. I'm not making excuses. I'm just being honest. He's not in an easy conference. And yet everything you said tells me that coach is a good coach. We're gonna roll with this guy. He knows what he's doing. But I feel like Mike McCarthy's a 5. I feel like he can win 12 games again this season. If they get knocked out early in the play, he's fired. He's going to get fired. I don't know if they win and get into it. They win 2 games, he might get fired. I think nothing short of them winning the NFC, going to the Super Bowl, I think he gets fired. I feel like he's the most awkward and oddest lame duck coach I've ever seen, because his record says this is our coach. We're missing a piece here, or there's been a play or 2 that killed us, but this is our coach. And anybody on the outside knows better than that, right? Like he's a lame duck coach who could win 12 games and still be fired.
I think the thing that keeps saving Mike McCarthy from, and granted, he's won 12 games 3 years in a row. So I'm not trying to say he's a bad coach, But I think the thing that saves him for some of the criticism in Dallas, I'm not even talking about his job right now. I'm just talking about criticism from Jerry Jones, is that Jerry Jones, he needs to be relevant. And he would much rather lock in 10 to 12 wins a season, be competitive in the division, lock in that playoff spot, whether it be division or wild card, and have that in his back pocket, than fire your head coach, take a swing at someone you think could improve the team, while also knowing in the back of your mind, it could also hurt the team. And he wants the playoffs. He wants the sure thing. He wants to pencil in the double-digit wins. And because he wants to do that, I think that stops him from pulling the trigger and saying, you've hit your ceiling, or it's just not working. Because they are successful right now. 12 straight wins, three years in a row of 12 wins, 3 playoff appearances, two division titles in that span. That's relevant. That is relevant in the conversation of saying that you could contend for a Super Bowl type of relevant. When you're winning your division 2 out of 3 years and you're 12 wins 3 years in a row, you're going to be in the Super Bowl conversation. Obviously, it hasn't panned out that way, Mo. And then the flip side of that is, well, what if he does fire Mike McCarthy? Who do they bring in? Because it's not like there's big name head coaches just hanging out, wanting to come coach in Dallas. Harbaugh was out there for a minute, but he didn't show any interest in wanting to go coach the Dallas Cowboys. No. And a lot of those big name coaches aren't going to show the interest because of Jerry. Right. So you're looking at a situation where it's a little scary to move away from the guy who keeps getting you 12 wins and division titles and into the playoffs. Because what if the next guy who comes in gets you 9 wins and you miss the playoffs?
Right.
Now you're the Dallas Cowboys who aren't going to the – now you're not being talked about as positively anymore during the regular season. But, Mo, let me ask you this. Dak Prescott doesn't have a contract past this season. Could they move both at the same time? If things don't go well, let's say they win 12 games and it's they win the division. They get a home playoff game, first round bye, home playoff game. They lose. I don't care how they lose. It's not a blowout. It's a close game, but they lose. Dak gets the ball at the end of the game. He gets into territory. They're down by 4. He throws a pick at the 20-yard line. Game over. Do we see both of them leave Dallas? After 4 years of 12 wins, 3 division titles, 4 playoff appearances, only 1 playoff win. Does he hit the reset button and say, you know what? We're going to let 31-year-old Dak Prescott walk. We're going to let Mike McCarthy walk. And we're going to go find someone else.
So you make a compelling argument about the relevancy, right? I mean, every fan base, you always want to know that your team is in the hunt, that they have a chance. The Dallas Cowboys fan base, they've been sustained by this thought process since 1995. Yeah. The last time you know what I mean? No, I'm being real, right? It's the last time they were in the Super Bowl. They've been sustained by that thought process. Whenever they talk, they that's what's sustaining them. But that's a long time to not go to a Super Bowl. Never mind winning it, but not getting there. Look, I'm a Niner fan, and I'm frustrated that we haven't won Super Bowls recently. But we've been in multiple Super Bowls recently and just come up short. But that has more weight to it than going 12 wins, and not never making it. And I just think at some point, if you're Jerry Jones, is it the coaches, or do you actually look in the mirror and go, maybe it's me? He'll never do that, right? That'll never happen. Jerry will always go like it's clearly the coaches. My guess is if he were to consider moving off of Mike McCarthy, he'd be probably his first phone call would be to Bill Belichick. I think he would call Bill Belichick. The question I have, though, is whether you call Bill Belichick or not, who's going to be your quarterback? Because Dak Prescott doesn't have a contract, and if you don't work something out during the course of the season, he will walk out the door a free agent. And my guess is there won't be a shortage of phone calls to Dak Prescott's agent, right? Like you're talking about one of the 10 best quarterbacks in football who's only 31 years old. So I would say that he's got a good 6 or 7 years of playing football ahead of him. And if you lose that quarterback, never mind replacing the coach, who's your quarterback? Because without a quarterback, a legit quarterback, never mind being disappointed and winning 11 or 12 games and getting knocked out early. Now you're talking about not making the playoffs. And because in this NFL, if you don't have a quarterback, you're not making the playoffs. It's that simple. I don't care about the surrounding talent. If you don't have a guy that can make plays, run your offense, and make throws that throw guys open, recognize defense, the whole nine, you're going to be a 500 or below 500 team. I don't know how Dallas put themselves into this pretzel. My biggest concern wouldn't be Mike McCarthy. It'd be, what are we going to do with our quarterback in a quarterback-driven league? This guy's about to walk out the door and become the starting quarterback somewhere else, and that's insanity.
The New York Jets.
Well, yes, because whether they win the Super Bowl or not, we know Aaron's walking, right? Aaron's gone.
The next head coach on this list is the head coach of the New York Jets, Robert Saleh. Robert had a built-in hall pass last season when Aaron Rodgers goes down 4 plays into the year. Nothing is what it was supposed to be, so just keep the ship together, and you are going to be fine, and that's what Robert Saleh did. But now, Mo, Aaron is here, and if Aaron stays healthy and the Jets do not meet expectations this season, at what point do they look at Robert Saleh and say, well, or is it not a Robert Saleh situation? Because I could argue and say, listen, he got hurt his first year. He just looked older his second year. It is what it is. We got Dak Prescott coming in, younger quarterback. He's going to have 3 or 4 good seasons left. 3 or 4 good seasons left in him. We love the defense here, Saleh. We love your defense. So let's just regroup, forget these 2 Aaron Rodgers years, and let's go get it with Dak. And I can see him keeping his job.
Yeah. Look, I can see him keeping his good job because what you just outlined. Saleh's known for being a defensive-minded head coach. Aaron, he's got his guy as the offensive coordinator. That's his guy. They've let Aaron Rodgers set the table for himself. If Aaron Rodgers stays upright and the Jets don't go to the Super Bowl or at least get to the AFC title game, my guess is it would have to be that the offense didn't keep up its end of the bargain, because they're going to have a top 5 defense, if not the number 1 defense in football. And if that's the case, that's not on Saleh. That tells you that Rodgers just got older. He just got older, and he's not the player that he once was. Guess what? Give me Dak Prescott and let's run it back with what we have, and then you can make a better determination on Robert Saleh. So I think Robert Saleh is not going to get fired. I think his seat is very cold. I think he's a 1.
The last one we have is the current head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, Nick Sirianni. As you know, I am not a Nick Sirianni guy. I think this guy's a complete clown. I don't know what the Philadelphia Eagles saw in him when they brought him on as their head coach. I don't. There's times where he has no control of his locker room. There's times where he has no control of himself. And he's just doing ridiculous things on the sidelines, arguing with players, arguing with fans. I don't want to hear that he's passionate. I don't want to hear that nonsense. You are a head coach. You cannot be acting like a fired up player out there in all the situations that he is doing it in. So for me, I think that he goes with the team. If the team bounces back and has a 10, 11, 12 win season, wins the division, gets into the playoffs, wins a playoff game, I think they bring him back. If the team struggles, I think they fire him. I think it's literally going to be whatever the team does, that's going to be the fate of Sirianni.
I actually agree with you 100% on that. I'm looking at Sirianni's track record. I would argue that there's a lot of Eagles fans that don't know what they don't think much of him, right? You know what I mean? Like, I think initially when they hired him, I think they thought we're getting the next Dan Campbell, right? But he's not. He's not Dan Campbell. This guy doesn't really have the respect of his team. I don't think. I don't think they look at him as a leader, as their leader. And I do think that if the Eagles have anything close to the season that they had last year, I'm not sure they wait till the end of the season to fire him. I really don't. I think if they come out the gate and they're struggling early, I think he gets fired. I don't think they wait to let it play out. I think his seat is already at a 4.5.
Mo, before we get out of here today, let's talk a little more about the New York Jets. Mo, we know that all the time when it comes to schedule making and whatnot in the different leagues, sometimes leagues do favors. They keep it hush hush, but we look at things sometimes and we go, man, isn't it interesting how Russell Wilson was a Seahawk last season and now he's a Bronco? And in the beginning of the season, Russ and the Broncos are playing the season. It's how crazy is it that it just worked out that way?
Right.
Well, it didn't just work out that way. The NFL was doing the networks a favor when they were stacking some of the early matchups. They wanted to stack some of the former quarterbacks against their former teams, and that's why you got that Seattle-Denver matchup very early in the season a couple of seasons ago. Let's take a look at the New York Jets, for example, because that's where we're going to finish up. I want you to go through here, Mo. I'm going to tell you who the Jets open their season with, okay? Obviously, at the Niners, that's not necessarily doing Aaron Rodgers any favors, but he's prime time against the Niners on the road to open the season. But after that, here is what Aaron Rodgers has. He's at Tennessee. Then he goes home for 4 games in a row. So he starts off on the road in San Francisco, Monday Night Football, all the bright lights, all eyes are on Aaron Rodgers, which is how he likes it.
For sure.
Then they take a little road trip to Nashville for a Tennessee team who, let's be honest, isn't that great. And then he goes home for a month. And for 4 straight games, he brings in the Patriots, the Broncos, the Minnesota Vikings, and then finally, Monday night, October 14th, he gets another challenge, the Buffalo Bills. Mo, it is very fair to say that the NFL schedule makers have done Aaron Rodgers some favors here because this is a very front-loaded schedule. After the Buffalo Bills, they go on the road to Pittsburgh and New England, and then their schedule starts to get a little bit harder in the second half. They got Houston, Arizona, Indy. Those could all be competitive games. And then they come into their bye week. Then they come out of their bye week and they got a little gauntlet at the end of the season. Seattle, Miami, Jacksonville, the Rams, Buffalo, and Miami. It definitely is a harder end to the schedule than it is the beginning of the schedule. But Mo, isn't this exactly what the NFL wants? Don't they want Aaron Rodgers to have all the bright lights week 1? And even if he loses, even if the Jets lose to the San Francisco 49ers, what does he have next? Tennessee, New England, Denver, Minnesota. They're probably going to be 4-1 going into that Buffalo game.
Right. They're going to come in to Buffalo at worst 4-1.
So now you got a full. Oh, and by the way, Mo, that's a Monday Night Football game. Prime time, baby. Monday night, Bills and Jets. The Jets are probably going to be worst case scenario 4-1. I don't know what the Bills are going to be, but the division could be on the line for that game early on. And then you come out of that Buffalo game and you go, oh, Pittsburgh, by the way, that's a Sunday night game. Oh, New England. And then you finally start getting into the harder portion of your schedule. So Aaron Rodgers and the Jets are set up to come out of the gate hot, Mo. Which is what you want if you're the NFL. You want the midway point of this season to come, and you want the Jets and Aaron Rodgers to be in the Super Bowl conversation. Then if the New York Jets do what the New York Jets do, and they fall apart, it is what it is. It is what it is at that point. But for that first half of the season, if you're the NFL, you want them to be talked about as far as playoffs and Super Bowl, and I don't think it's a coincidence, Mo, that the schedule nearly lines up perfectly for that.
It's not a coincidence. And like you said, the powers that be, they want them talked about as a legit Super Bowl contender. But if they're 4-1, and they're going to be on all these primetime games, especially that Buffalo one, if we're right and they come in there at worst, and who knows, they may upset the Niners, but at worst, they come in there at 4-1. That the ratings of that primetime game are going to be through the roof. You know it, I know it, and that's exactly what they want. And if they should win that game, coming out of that game, they're going to be the talk of the league, right? Look at Aaron Rodgers. Look what he's done. This is what the Jets were all about. This is all they needed. Yeah, I really do think the NFL knows what they're doing. They're highlighting and trying to promote Aaron Rodgers in advance. They've given him that little, I would call it a week gauntlet, like after week 1, to where it's like, okay, you play the Niners week 1, but after that, you can get right real quick with 4 straight wins. Like I love how they did that. So yeah, I think it's set up nicely for them to get off to a very quick start.
Mo, 6 of the Jets' first 11 games are primetime games. More than half of their first 11 games are primetime games. Oh, and by the way, there's a 7th game in there that is a 9:30 a.m. start. That is against Minnesota. That might be overseas, which is why that game is so early. So that is also another de facto primetime slot, if you will. So 7 of their first 11 games are primetime, big TV slot, money games. And then you look at the schedule when the schedule gets hard. Seattle, Miami, Jacksonville, the Rams, Buffalo, Miami. Well, the last game against Miami, that's a to be decided. But every one of those other games, 1:00 p.m., baby. So if the collapse is happening, it's not happening on national TV.
It's not going to be on TV. Right.
The league knew exactly what they were doing with the New York Jets schedule.
No, I think they played their cards correctly. And look, they who's to say that the Jets won't find a way to have a good record on the back end? In the end, the big picture is you'd like to see them finish. I guess if you're a Jet fan, you want to be in the playoffs. Just get there, right? So I think to get there in that division, in that conference, they're going to have to win at least 10 games. I'll say 11, maybe 10 or 11 games just to get there.
All right, Mo, good show on a Wednesday. Close us out, sir.
Appreciate you guys so much for joining Chris and I this morning. Make sure you check out all the great content that we have at the Wire to Wire Network. Wire to Wire Network, we appreciate you.
Make sure you're back here, same time, same place tomorrow. JG will be on the show to talk a little Major League Baseball with us. We'll be breaking down some more NFL and NBA stuff, all of that and more. Coffee and sports. It's the morning show.